Okay, everybody. So in our last session, we started with the basics of just getting our target goal that we described, right? Which is kind of adding this new file, adding a column after the grade column that contains true if the grade is some kind of fancy and false otherwise, and output it as a new file. So we know what we're going for here, and we've done our antenna setup. We've checked that our Python is working correctly. We did our little auto config and got everything set up. And I've just used this print statement to make sure I'm not getting any errors. So what I want to do right now is I want to sort of develop a skeleton idea of the tasks that I need to perform in order to get to my goal, right? And actually what I'm going to do is, rather than writing them in a separate file, actually I'm going to leave this as setup test. I'm going to start a new file that's going to be my actual project file. So again, I'm just going to go to File, New, and choose File. And I'm going to say, let's call this add fancy measure.py. Okay? So I've got a new blank file here, and there are a few things that I want to get done. There are a few crucial elements of this task. And rather than write it in a separate file, which of course you're always welcome to do, it's never a bad idea, but there's a feature of working in code that actually lets us kind of annotate, I think of it as annotating, taking notes, right, on our process right in the file. And this is extremely helpful both while we're developing, also if we come back to this, if we need help, if another programmer wants to look at it, it sort of just describes in English the thing that the code is trying to do. Very similar to what you did with your regular expressions, but what's nice is we have it all in one place here. So in Python, actually, the way that we tell the computer to ignore what's on that particular line because actually it doesn't have any meaning in code is we start it with a hashtag, something that I'm sure all of you are familiar with, the happy hashtag. I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to sort of outline my file and sort of say what I'm going to do. So tasks to be completed in this program. So 1, read in my source file. 2, well, let's see. The second thing that I need to do is I need to test whether the value in the grade column has fancy in it. Add a new column that has true if the above is true, false if it is false. And, oops. And then finally, I need to output a new file with that column. Okay, so 4 pretty simple steps, or potentially simple steps. We'll see how it goes. But now we have sort of just a nice overview of what we're trying to get done. So, and you'll notice that I started each of these lines with a hashtag. That's very important. Anything that doesn't have a hashtag in front of it, the computer is going to try to interpret as code. So the very first part of this is step 1, reading in my source file. So I want to just create a reference to that source file, and you know, if you think about how you normally get to a file within a given program. If I were in, for example, Google Refine even, right? If I were to pull up Refine, or let's take a look at Excel, right? If I have Excel here, what do I do if I want to open a file? Well, I go to File and then I choose Open. Well, guess what? The syntax in Python is very similar. So we're actually, whoops, I didn't actually want to open an Excel file. So what I'm going to say is, what's my original file? Well, I'm going to open. And how do I decide what file I'm going to open? Well, I'm going to open a file by passing its name along. Now, an important point here is that I want to make sure that the file that I'm working with is actually in the same folder as my Python scripts. Why? It's just easier to find it that way. You don't have to do it this way. There's ways to get around it, but I strongly support just doing it right in here. You can see that I had that folder Python scripts, and then Aptana Studio created another folder inside it called Python scripts. Kind of annoying, but anyway, I can just drag and drop my file in there. And actually that file will also turn up in a second in my project folder, right? So I can see right in this Project Explorer, I can see that it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and, of course, the name of my file is a string, so I'm going to put it in double quotes, and it's going to be apples as always .csv. So everything about the file name, including the extension. And so, this is very similar if we think back to our candy experiment. We're learning candy. How do well, if you want me to open a file, well, you've got to pass me a file. The other thing that we're going to do is, you can see I put a comma in here. So the name of the file is what we call our first argument. We're saying, look, here's the name of the file that I want you to open. And this is going to be sort of a bit of received wisdom for you guys. We're also going to pass it this second argument, which is lowercase r, capital U. And the reason why we're doing this is basically because one of the things that this magical open method that Python already knows about wants to know is, how do I know when I've hit a new line in your data file? How do I know when I should be, breaking and going to the next, the beginning of the next line? This would not be an issue, except for the fact that, as we all know, there's more than one operating system in the world, and it happens that when Apple's and PCs got started, they decided to use different invisible characters for indicating this, and because of that, we had to tell the computer that it should look for either of them, because we don't know where this file came from or what it was written by, and so we're just going to say, look, if you see anything that looks like a carriage return character, of course it's invisible to us, right? I don't see anything when I type a carriage return, but the computer does. Anything that could be a carriage return, just treat it as a carriage return. I'm pretty sure that's the end of the line in my file, okay? So that's sort of your received wisdom there. And now I just want to give it a test, and I'm going to see, okay, so I'm going to say print started, right? And then afterwards, I'm going to put another print statement that just says finished. Now, why am I putting these print statements around it? Well, Python is what I like to call a no news is good news kind of programming language, right? Basically, if everything goes okay, it's not going to do anything at all, which can be kind of disconcerting, right? Because normally we expect something to happen if things are going well. But Python and most programming languages read the way that we do, right? So they actually read left to right and top to bottom. And what you can think of this as is that if it gets to a point in the program and it doesn't know what's going on, it's going to go, whoa, 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 stop. I don't get what's happening here. And it's not going to go on to the next line. You can think of it as you're reading an article or something, you hit a word that you don't understand, right? You've got to stop reading and, I don't know, maybe you go look up the word, maybe you just go start reading something else, or you just, sit there with your head in your hands, which is pretty much what the computer does, because the computer, again, not as clever as you are. So, so what we know is that I'm going to print, I print started, right? If it successfully opens this file, then what I can expect is that it will happily go on to print finished, right? So if I run this and I see started and finished, then I'm pretty sure that this command that I've written about opening this file is working okay. So to that end, I'm sort of a compulsive Apple S, saving my file. And I'm just, again, going to go up to the debug thing. I'm going to choose Python run. It's going to ask me this again because I'm in a new file in particular. And it looks like everything worked okay, which is awesome. So I've got one big part of it done. There is one little thing that I want to make sure of, though, right? And this is my speed reading analogy, which is that, the computer has a tendency to kind of just like ingest everything at once, right? When I open a file in Excel, it doesn't, it reads, it pulls in all the information, it puts all of the lines in, and I'm not really prepared to handle it that way, right? What I want it to do is I want it to read the way that I read, which is line by line. And so I'm going to specifically give it this method, right? Again, built-in function called readlines. And readlines is something that Python understands, and it says, oh, okay, yeah, you want me to open this file? Sure. Oh, and you only want me to read it one line at a time. And what this is going to do is it's going to let us look at our data row by row instead of as one big giant chunk of stuff. And of course, since we are concerned with the organization of the file, and specifically we want to look at what's happening in a specific column, we just want to look at that one line at a time so that we can test it one line at a time. So I've done that. And we'll just give this another quick run. I believe in, test early, test often. See how this is going. Doesn't really seem to be going. There we go. Took a while, huh? Doesn't usually take that long. So this is a good start. The next thing I have to do is test whether the value in the grade column has fancy in it. So we already know how we're going to execute this test. We're going to execute it with a regular expression. Now, you may have seen this in some of your how-tos on regular expressions. Now, basically, you know, programming languages have a certain set of dictionaries that they have built in, that every time you open up a programming language, it's like, yes, I definitely know these words, I understand these terms, you're all good. But you know, you don't need to have every book in the every dictionary in the Library of Congress in order to be able to read a Dr. Seuss book, right? So sometimes when we're doing specialty things, and actually regular expressions are considered a little bit of a specialty, we need to tell it to actually go and get a particular dictionary. And in this case, we're going to tell it to go and get the regular expression dictionary, which is, programmers love to have short little words for things because otherwise there's an awful lot of typing involved. And so we're going to say import RE, which is the dictionary for regular expressions. And then we're going to create a regular expression. We're going to tell it, hey, here's a regular expression that I want you to sort of pre-digest and keep on hand because I'm going to use it to test some values later. So I'm going to say import RE, and you can see it's okay that I have these comment lines above that import statement, totally not a problem. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it isFancy, right? That's what I called my column, why not? And I'm going to say re.compile, right? And the compiling part says process this, right? Think about this thing that I'm going to hand you. Now, again, we see how the syntax can be both similar and different. So when I pass an argument, when I pass the regular expression to this RE compile, I'm actually going to do it inside of quotation marks. I know that's a little counterintuitive because in Google Refine we were working with forward slashes. Again, these are just the vagaries of working in different tools, but the principle remains the same, right? So actually the rest of my syntax is exactly the same, right? I'm using the same regular expression that I used, and I can see in my undo redo here, right? I'm going to say dot asterisk fcy dot asterisk, right? And that's going to be my regular expression. And so now, again, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to run this. I haven't actually told my program to do anything with my regular expression yet, but I just want to make sure that, you know, that dictionary imported okay, that it understands the regular expression that I passed to it. It's not, you know, throwing up any red flags yet. So again, I'm going to go to this bug thing and boom. Looks like things are pretty good. So far, I've done a pretty good job. I'm about, I don't know, a third of the way through my task. So in the next video, we're going to looking at our individual rows of data and also getting at this, how do I figure out which is the grade column and how do I test for the value that I'm looking for. I will see you all in a few minutes.